Hello? Oh. We will now pose one question to each candidate individually. You will each have 1 minute to answer your question. Candidates, throughout the debate, you may request a 30-second rebuttal to another candidate's statement by raising your hand. The moderator will call on you. Oh, do you have the first question?
Yes.
You do.
Yeah, so I just want to know,
Yes.
like, so I know what to listen for. After you say why they should vote for you, do you say Speaker Porter?
I'll be saying, Speaker Porter, you have the floor. And then I'll say, Mr. Tay, you have the floor. And then Speaker Thomas, you have the floor.
And then you're
Senator Walton, and then I'm going to read that, yeah.
Okay, then
So,
okay.
yeah, you don't start until there. Got it? Let me read the last sentence and then hand it. The moderator will call on you.
Our first question takes us to Speaker Porter. One of your priorities is
Welcome to the annual Student Government Association debate hosted by The Signal, your independent student newspaper. I'm Ada Wood, editor-in-chief at The Signal. Thank you for showing up here to Speaker's Auditorium in person or tuning in through the live stream at home. Before the debate begins, I hope you've had the chance to look through our special four-cover SGA edition, but if you haven't opened your issue yet, open to page 10 now for a debate guide. Scan the QR code on the top left of the page with your phone camera now to take our entrance poll before it closes in the next 15 minutes. When the debate ends, scan the QR code in the bottom right to take the exit poll before the night is over. After the debate, current SGA members, candidates for any position, and their campaign teams, and members of the media are invited to a post-debate spin room in the Signal office, room 250, on the second floor of Student Center West. Tonight, candidates for Atlanta Speaker, Atlanta Executive Vice President, University-wide President will take the stage. They will be asked a thrilling round of questions, which I know will be both informative and entertaining because I've seen them. Now I'd like to welcome our very informed and talented panel of moderators. Staff reporter Mary Brassfield. Managing editor and head moderator tonight, Will Solomons. News editor, Brooklyn Valera. And staff reporter, Amani Dennis. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the night.
Students will be voting for the next Speaker of the Senate for their respective campus the week before spring break. The Speaker directs his or her campus's SGA meetings, while that role is given to the university-wide president at university-wide meetings. On the Atlanta campus, students will have a choice between 4 candidates: Audrey Abram, Brianna Bailey, Nia Cole, and Peter Menidos, who unfortunately could not attend tonight. As an opening statement, candidates, you'll each have 30 seconds to tell the audience and your potential constituents why they should vote for you. Senator Abram, you have the floor.
Hi, everybody. My name is Audrey Abraham. I am a junior political science major here at Georgia State, and I'm running to be your next Speaker of the Senate. As Speaker, I believe that the senators should be held accountable, which I promise to do. I am able to take on these new responsibilities and be held to a higher standard. And I vow to be an open and accessible leader to the Speaker and the student body.
Thank you, Senator Abraham. Ms. Bailey, you have the floor.
First and foremost, I want to say that it is a pleasure and an honor to stand up here in front of all you guys. I am Brianna Bailey. If you all do not know me, I am a sophomore political science major here at Georgia State. I'm not here to offer you empty promises, but I'm here for change. I'm here because I believe that matter of fact, I know that I am more than capable of fulfilling the Speaker of the Senate duties, regardless of being SGA before, but after, it'll be all said and done.
I'm a philosophy major, and I'm currently a senator for the College of Arts and Sciences. I, as Speaker of the Senate, will do my best to make sure that there is visibility between that we will bridge the gap between students and student government. Of course, I want to make sure that we have the students, sorry, but most definitely I want to make sure that I am the best for the job, and I pretty much think I am. I want to be held accountable, of course, for everything that I can do to help the students, no matter what.
Thank you, Senator Cole. The following questions will be posed to candidates individually. You'll each have 1 minute to answer your question. Candidates, throughout the debate, you may request a 30-second rebuttal to another candidate's statement by raising your hand. The moderator will call on you.
Our first question takes us to Senator Abraham. Your top 3 priorities are to increase SGA's visibility, allow access to campus resources for students, and be a leader for the student body. What specific actions and policy proposals do you have for these goals?
Initially, I would like to start with our freshmen. A lot of them are not notified of the campus resources we have here on campus, so I would like to further engage them and connect them with the resources we have here on campus through processes like, through the freshman orientation stage as well as the FLC stage, welcoming them further on campus and making them more recognizable with the features we do have here on campus, as well as promoting the success and opportunities here at on campus through further initiatives such as creating dialogue between the student body and the Senate. Yeah.
Thank you, Senator Abraham.
Our next question is for Ms. Bailey. In your priorities, you mentioned a gap between students and faculty and staff as a concern. What does this gap look like and how will you close it?
Well, first and foremost, students feel as though faculty is above, and since they don't feel like a personal connection, they can't relay their problems or feel like those problems will be heard correctly. So as the Speaker of the Senate, my job is to develop that connection, that personal connection and personal interaction between the student body and the Senate to interact with those students for them to feel like their voices are more than just voices, that whatever they desire, whatever they feel will advance the university will come to pass. Talking to someone you feel as though is elite makes you feel diminished. But as the Speaker of the Senate and the student body are on the same playing field. We are all students as well. So we want the other students to feel as though talking to us we are accepting of their thoughts, their...
Thank you, Ms. Bailey.
Mary Butt.
Our next question is for Senator Cole. Give me one second.
Okay. Oh.
Senator Abraham, you may respond.
Okay. As senators, we hold ourselves to a higher standard. There are many students who feel as if their voice means nothing, and so they typically come on campus and go to class and go home. As senators, we are here to show them that their voices matter. So to say that the senators and the students are on the same playing field, I will say that is not true. Although we are students first, I believe that as senators, we are here to accomplish what the student body wants.
Mayor Buck.
You may respond.
So to say that we're on the same playing field does not diminish the power in which the Senate possesses. The Senate still has the ability to talk to and relay the problems that the students feel is going wrong with the university. But if we feel as though we're elite to them and they feel as though we're elite, then they'll feel like we're just the faculty and staff as well, and talking to us, nothing is gonna get done. If they can relate to us because we are still students at the end of the day, then they'll open up their mouths and speak regardless of what position I hold.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Our next question is for Senator Cole. One of the main roles of a speaker is to run meetings efficiently. In your priorities, you said you will make the administrative side of SGA more efficient. What current efficiency problems do you see, and what exact actions will you take to solve them?
Some of the problems that I feel that do happen is that I feel as if most of the time, a lot of times, our time could be wasted on things that are not as important and things that we can take care of. I would make a priority that the things that our students, our safety, and anything that is most important to our students will be taken care of during these meetings. And most definitely, I want to open the doors more for these students, even though we do need to make it more open for the students to come in and access. If there's any problems, to let us be known so we can take care of it and make sure the meetings, anything that we do, actually move on efficiently.
Thank you, Senator Cole.
Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the following questions. Often the task of sending student media organizations agendas ahead of a meeting and minutes after a meeting falls on the speaker of that campus. How do you plan on continuing to work with student media groups on deadline to effectively communicate and provide transparency? Ms. Bailey, you have the floor.
Well, you first provide a schedule ahead of time. When you set out deadlines for your senators, for the media, everybody has to follow that schedule. A calendar, you have to keep them accountable. Also, when you have to know who is most reliable in your Senate. You assign those specific people to do those specific jobs because one person can't do everything. But when you have all of everybody working together, then more things get done, and they get done more efficiently.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Senator Cole, you have the floor.
I believe efficiency is key, and I believe efficiency is key, and that I will most definitely self-pick out and talk to every single one of my senators and make sure every single one of my senators know what job to be done, what needs to be done, and what they're being accountable for. I will definitely hold my senators accountable. That's the most important thing, because when they're accountable, I believe they will make sure that their job is done proficiently and done well. I want to make a difference. I want to make a change. I want to make sure the Senate and I want to make sure the SGA can do the best and make the most and the best change they can be.
Thank you, Senator Cole. Senator Abraham, you have the floor.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question again?
How do you plan on continuing to work with student media groups on deadline to effectively communicate and provide transparency?
I believe that we should have an open door policy for all of our meetings, inviting students as well as student media to be welcome and invited into the meetings, holding them just as valuable as the senators themselves, because the media is the ones that relay the information back to the students, as well as holding the senators accountable for attending meetings, participating in meetings, as well as having open dialogue between the students and the senators.
Thank you, Senator Abraham.
One role of the speaker is to ensure legislation is in order prior to meetings. What do you plan to do if the legislation has not been discussed and the senators are still not ready for a vote come meeting time? Senator Cole, you have the floor.
Well, I would definitely want to make sure the senators are most informed. I want them to be able to read over it and understand what they have. But if for some reason that the Senate cannot come up with a decision, I would like for them to deliberate over what they think should happen, ask questions, and by the next meeting, hopefully, we can come up with an agreement.
Thank you, Senator Cole. Senator Abraham, you have the floor.
I believe as me as Speaker of the Senate, that will not happen. However, let's say hypothetically it does. I will call a recess and discuss the further legislation and further educate the senators on what the legislation will do, how it is important, and hopefully by that time we will be able to reach an agreement. If not, then we will have to postpone until next meeting, but I do not see that happening.
Thank you, Senator Abraham. Ms. Bailey, you have the floor.
Poor preparation equals poor performance. All of the senators will be prepared correctly in order to fulfill their duties wholly. As Senator Abraham said, if that happens to be the case, when we will have to postpone that meeting in order for the senators to become one, because there's no need to waste time on an issue that isn't going to be resolved in that meeting.
May I rebut?
Yes, you may.
As senators, we do not need to all come to one agreement. So as senators, so you say that senators need to be one. Of course, senators are going to have their own individual preferences, which is completely understandable and completely acceptable. I do not believe we need to postpone a whole meeting because aside from legislation, we do talk about more important business on the floor, such as things happening in committee meetings.
Thank you, Ms. Abraham.
May I rebut?
I'm sorry, we don't have time.
Okay.
Senator Cole, you and Senator Menetos, who could not be here tonight, both didn't win the vote for the Speaker pro tempore at the February 13th Atlanta Senate meeting. Why do you think that you're a good candidate for the Speaker position if you didn't win the vote for the Speaker pro tempore?
Well, I, in my opinion, do believe that I would be great for the position. Even though I did not make the position for Speaker pro tempore, it doesn't reflect at all what I can do in this position. It was basically it was a vote between our peers and senators, and I will admit someone else was very qualified for the position, but that doesn't mean that I'm not either. I believe, even though now I did not make that position, I can do everything in my power and everything that I need to do to make sure that the students can come to me and I can make sure that everything SGA can go along as perfectly and planned.
Thank you, Senator Cole.
All of you listed increasing visibility and increasing interaction between the student body and SGA. Please list specific actions and plans you have for doing so. Senator Abram, you may begin.
I would like to carry on an initiative that my current administration is doing, partnering with RHA in going to dining halls and student housing, increasing dialogue and conversation between the students there, as well as increasing dialogue between commuter students and transfer students, increasing the role of the freshman liaisons and transfer liaisons throughout SGA, and holding them accountable for reaching out and talking to their constituents as well to hear their wants and needs.
Thank you, Senator Abram. Ms. Bailey, you have the floor.
Well, first and foremost, in order to get students to know, you have to be a part. Both candidates up here are a part of SGA right now, yet they still believe that SGA is not visible. So what is it that they have done to make them visible? When I become Speaker of the Senate, I will partner with those organizations that are more popular on campus, so that way the students are already in the door. And so now you become a part of that and get to share your thoughts, your ideas about what SGA is about. In order to actually talk about SGA, you have to be passionate about it. And people can see a fake. So when you fake the funk, they're not gonna believe it and they're not gonna wanna be a part.
May I rebut?
You may respond.
Partnering with organizations that are more popular on campus still feels like you are excluding some students. Our job is not to exclude students. We will target all students no matter what organization they are part of.
May I rebut?
We have to move on to the next
Okay.
senator. Senator Cole, you may respond.
Can I hear the question again?
All of you listed increasing visibility and increasing interaction between the student body and SGA. Please list specific actions and plans you have for doing so.
I personally believe if you want to get a connection with someone, you need to get down, dirty, and personal. You need to get personal with them, go out into the field, and get to know them. That's personally how I work. If I want to get to know my students, my opponent, anything, I get to know them, know who they are, what's their major. That's what you need to do. We need to be friends. I want to say, I believe that we need to be friends and have a personal relationship. I want them to be comfortable just to walk into the office, knock on my door, and be like, hey, can I talk to you? I have a problem that I want to go over with you. And I need that visibility to happen. And I believe that I can do that.
Thank you, Senator Cole.
This now concludes the moderated questions. We now open the floor to the audience. Audience members, if you would like to ask a question, please approach the microphone at the front of the room. We will take 2 questions from our live audience and 1 from our audience at home. Candidates, you will have 30 seconds to respond to those questions.
Hey everyone, my name is Tempore. I'm the current executive vice president for the campus for the Government Association. So my question is to all of you, but I would like Ms. Bailey to answer first. Are you familiar with what rules of parliamentary procedure SGA?
You said, what now?
What rules of parliamentary procedure does SGA use as Speaker of the Senate? You will have to be master of this procedure.
Yes, I know that they use the Robert Rules of Order.
Okay, thank you.
Is it working? Oh, shit. During your intro speeches, I heard a lot of you, or I'm not sure if everyone said it, but probably. Well, you guys were talking about accountability. What do you mean by accountability? Could you like clarify?
Okay, I'll go first. So within SGA, we use a point system, and this point system is to hold senators accountable for their actions and their choices. So I believe in fully extending the point system to ensure that the senators are fulfilling their roles and responsibilities.
One more question from the audience. Come on over.
Hello, my name is Christine Contreras, and Senator Audrey, is that correct?
Yes.
You had mentioned about that your current administration has started a new initiative. You said RHA. Can you elaborate that and more about the initiative?
Yes, it's not a new initiative. So what we do is we partner with RHA, the Resident Housing Association, and we basically go into dining halls and into the housing facilities and set up tables there and basically increase dialogue about how students are unhappy on campus, what changes they would like to see in new initiative, and things like that.
All right, this now concludes the speaker debate. We'll now transition into our EVP debate starting in 5 minutes. Thank you.
also called the EVP, once was a single position held under the president. After the consolidation between Georgia State and Georgia Perimeter, one EVP was created per campus. Students on the Atlanta campus will choose between candidates Spencer DeHart and Takai Tinsley. As an opening statement, candidates, you'll each have 30 seconds to tell the audience and your potential constituents why they should vote for you. Senator DeHart, you have the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen of Georgia State University, we come again to the annual tradition of SGA elections where you have the opportunity to choose your student leaders for the upcoming school year. In just 1 week, you will have the opportunity to choose between two candidates on who you want to lead the Atlanta campus of Georgia State University. Well, I want to tell you exactly why I am the person to fulfill that position. 3 words: success through experience. As the head senator for the Andrew Young School and as the university-wide campus safety committee chairman, I have been at the forefront of so many of the advantageous policies that we have worked to enact this past year. And tonight I plan to expand on those and tell you why you should cast your vote for me for Executive Vice President of the Atlanta campus.
Thank you, Senator DeHart. Senator Tinsley, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for sharing this space with me, despite each of your busy schedules during the day. I am not here tonight to demean my fellow candidate, for I have learned he is both a great man and an even greater senator, nor do I want to coerce anyone's blind vote for filling your heads with empty promises and optimistic lies. I am simply here because my love for this university's students, has called for me to be your advocate. It begs for me to be the beacon of hope you've been waiting for, the beacon that when lost in the dark, you will seek out for guidance. My name is Takai Tinsley, and when you elect me to be your next executive vice president on this campus, I guarantee that with your help, we will make state great.
Thank you, Senator Tinsley. Candidates, I'd like to request that you speak a little bit more into the mic. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
The following questions will be posed to both candidates individually, or just to the candidates individually. You will each have 1 minute to answer your respective question. Candidates, throughout the debate, you may request a 30-second rebuttal to another candidate's statement by raising your hand. The moderator will call on you.
Our first question takes us to Senator DeHart. In your priorities, you said that you want to increase communication between SGA and government officials to ensure student issues outside of the scope of SGA are being addressed. How do you plan on addressing issues that could be out of SGA's power?
So this is one particular issue that we've actually worked to make a lot of progress in our current SGA platform. And so what we are currently working towards is advocating to create an SGA committee specifically for government and community relations. We hope to be able to implement this committee within 1 to 2 weeks.
So the Perimeter Committee on Government Relations already exists. Will you establish something relating to or similar to this committee?
Absolutely. So the one that we are currently advocating for is kind of just a continuation of the committees on the perimeter campuses. So at some point, I wish as Executive Vice President to work to coordinate with the perimeter EVPs to coordinate our efforts in those committees.
Thank you, Senator DeHart.
Our next question is for Senator Tinsley. You want to increase library access to being open 24 hours. However, the 89th administration attempted this and failed due to security and cost issues. What is your plan? How is your plan going to be different than the previous failed initiatives?
Thank you. So currently, this mission has not been failed. It's just been extended. Right now, there are renovations in place to be scheduled into different stages for this library. And in the next 2 to 4 years, it will be having 24-hour access on the first floor. It'll be accessed through the green space whenever that renovation is due right next to it in the construction area. So we are making strides in making the library on Atlanta campus 24 hours. It's just not happening as soon as we expected.
Do you have a plan if the green space is not completed in time?
Well, optimistically, Georgia State won't fail us, but if it does, I will make sure that our priority in having student access space to the library space is being achieved before that expected end date between 2 to 4 years. If they give us any update that is expanding upon that, we will not stand for it.
Thank you, Senator Tinsley.
Our next question takes us to Senator DeHart. What specific initiatives have you accomplished while in your current position as senator, and what have been the outcomes of those initiatives?
Absolutely. So as I have clearly laid out in my policy platform, the one key platform policy that I want to continue to advocate for is something that we have already implemented in our university-wide Senate, and that is the policy resolution to cancel classes for the election in 2020. And I've said so many times that our students, they need the opportunity to be able to go out and vote to fulfill their civic participation. So that is one key resolution that I introduced. We passed with overwhelming support. And aside from that, I also worked to clearly negotiate a compromise between the Atlanta Senate and the perimeter campuses in regards to quorum at our university-wide Senate meetings. And from that, I'm hoping that we can continue to coordinate and continue to cooperate with the perimeter campuses.
Thank you, Senator DeHart.
Our next question is for Senator Tinsley. As a senator, you currently have 24 points, 1 point from disqualification and removal from office, and higher than the other candidates. How should voters trust that you will effectively take on the responsibilities of EVP with such high absence?
Thank you. Now, our point system, though very necessary, is flawed. All of my absences or tardiness through SGA meetings have simply been because of other prior academic or scholarship needs or requirements or events that go on campus. Now, through our bylaws, the specifics behind what is an excused absence and what isn't doesn't right now currently access to school-wide events that, though we are students and though we are supposed to be active students on campus, they are not quote-unquote excused. There are referendums in our bylaws committee right now to try to correct this so that in the next administration, students that are involved on campus, as I am, can make do with being an involved senator as well.
Senator DeHart, you may respond.
I would just like to ask you, Senator Tinsley, our points system allows for you to have 24 points. A 25th point will subsequently impeach you from office and also throw you out of this executive vice presidential election. So what I ask you today is, you say that your absences are because of other priorities, but how can we expect you to not tally that 25th point between today and when the EVP and the 91st administration actually takes office?
May I respond? Thank you, Spencer. Now, once I became aware of how serious and crucial this point system was in my situation, I have been on my P's and Q's. I will not let myself be impeached through office because I am a senator, a head senator in this college, and I know the worth that I hold within this administration. Now, as far as your regulation in terms of will I be impeached between now and the end of the semester, I indeed am on this stage with you right now. I intend to be here for the rest of this spring. I intend to be here all of fall, all of spring 2020 to 2021.
And how convenient it is for you to show up right when you're about to be impeached. How about that?
Like I said before, it's not like I've been an absent senator. There are people on this e-board and senators of our peers that will contest that my gratitude and my dedication to this administration has been there, regardless if my physical presence has been in every senator meeting.
At least ever since you've accumulated 224 points.
So are you saying that I have not been to any senator meetings in the previous fall semester?
I'm saying your collective absences to take you to 24 points have been left unexplained.
And like I just said, they have been due to academic responsibilities.
Okay, thank you, senators.
Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the following question. In the past, candidates have applied for this position without fully knowing what the powers of an EVP actually are. If you are the next EVP, what exactly are these powers, and what are the day-to-day tasks you will be performing? Senator Tinsley, you have the floor.
So, to sum it up, as EVP for Atlanta's campus, I am residing over our Senate and our Senate administration in full. So, on the surface, yes, we have to serve a certain number of 15 to 17 office hours a week. That's my expectation for myself. Overall, during these Senate meetings, we help reside and make sure regulations and literature during the meetings go according to plan, go according to agenda, along with our speaker.
Thank you, Senator Tinsley. Senator DeHart?
Senator Tinsley, I find it quite odd that you forgot to mention that the EVP resides over the Mandatory Activity Fee Committee, as well as the Diversity Fee Committee, as well as other fee committees on the Atlanta Senate. This is one of the most important responsibilities that the Executive Vice President on the Atlanta campus has. And so I find it awfully concerning that you weren't able to speak about those.
May I respond?
You may.
It's not that I'm unable to speak upon them, Senator DeHart. It's just that in my summary, do you not agree that residing over these meetings means residing over these committees as well?
As in residing over meetings, you implied as just the Atlanta Senate meetings, not specifically any committee.
I'm saying in general, Senator DeHart.
As what?
What is your original question?
I didn't have a question. I said it was concerning that you weren't able to tell me that the Executive Vice President sits on the Activity Fee Committee and the Diversity Fee Committee.
Okay, if that is your concern, I apologize for not getting as specific as you'd want me to.
All right.
Thank you, Senators.
Please identify an action taken by outgoing Atlanta EVP Hamza Rahman that you would have done differently and why. How would you like to see the administration change moving forward? Senator DeHart?
So, just to begin, our current Executive Vice President, Hamza Rahman, has done a phenomenal job in his position. If you're asking me to nitpick at what he has accomplished this year, the only thing that I can turn to was the whole debacle with the Henry Grady statue. Hamza Rahman, as well as our U-wide president, Jasmine Mejia, came out in support of placing a placard in front of the Henry Grady statue on Marietta Street, which became kind of an oversight just in terms of how it would impact higher-ups, such as the Dean of Students, as well as other administration officials. So in terms of how I would have changed that, I believe it's very important to kind of take in input from every source you possibly can prior to making a choice such as that.
Senator Tinsley?
I would also like to start with just saying I do believe Hamza has been doing a great job in his position, but if I had to pick something that he has done that I would try to achieve better is just overall transparent communication toward his e-board and the Senate in general. There have been small occasions where some things have fallen through the cracks, and there has been tribulations internally in the Student Government Association. So if I were in his shoes, I would just make sure, even if something is intentionally harmless, it would not be perceived harm onto the Senate.
Can you give an example?
So recently, Hamza had appointed one of his fraternity brothers to one of the e-board positions, and there had been certain conversations toward if this was a conflict of interest. Now, I believe it has not been a conflict of interest, and after having thorough conversations with Hamza, I have seen that it has not benefited him in any way, and him and his fraternity brother have had no prior notions toward trying to make strides within SGA that would conflict with our interests.
I'm sorry, Senator DeHart, we're going to have to move on.
How will you work with the Executive Council to promote unity between the campuses while continuing to represent the Atlanta campus? Senator Tinsley, you have the floor.
Repeat the question one more time, please.
How will you work with the Executive Council to promote unity between the campuses while continuing to represent the Atlanta campus? Senator Tinsley, you have the floor.
Thank you. Now, overall, though I would be residing over the Atlanta campus in my EVP position, I do believe we need to do better at having communication and collaborations across both Atlanta campus and the perimeter campuses in total. We have a lot of similar student chartered organizations as well as committees that I believe if we, as a university-wide Senate, try our best to have initiatives across many campuses that will show that we are one state and not one state divided by county lines, that we will showcase the community that we paint a picture of.
I will reframe the question. The Executive Council is the President, Advisor Board Beckworth, and all EVPs. So how will you work with that Executive Council to promote unity between the campuses and the Atlanta campuses?
Well, my answer still stands in the sense that the EVPs will have to do better at communicating with each other from the head down to the toe. And what I mean by that is us as EVPs can't start and finish our job and our commitment to SGA and during our office hours, during our Senate meetings. We need to be active both through our own individual actions on each of our campuses and through our lower senators within the administration to make sure there is communication and there is,
Thank you, Senator
Okay.
Tinsley. Senator Hart, you have the floor.
Well, the only response I can tell you for that is something I've already spoken on tonight. In January, I worked to actively negotiate a compromise between the Atlanta campus and the perimeter campus EVPs in regards to altering the requirements to meet quorum at the university-wide meetings. So I've already proven myself to be effective at collaborating with the perimeter colleges as well as collaborating internally.
Thank you, Senator DeHart.
Thank you, candidates. This now concludes the moderated questions. We now open the floor again to the audience. Audience members, if you would like to ask a question, please approach the front. We will take questions from our live audience and from our audience at home.
Hello, my name is Jonathan. I'm a senator for the College of Arts and Sciences. Thank you both of you for running for this position. I have a specific question for Senator Spencer. You name a lot of things that you have done. Seems like you are very experienced about everything that you're doing. But recently, at the beginning of the administration, you were assigned to be the chairman of had a committee about the Gilly program. What have you done for it? Thank you.
So in terms of the Gilly program, as I've spoken to the paper about this, it has simply been a lack of traction. So far, ever since I was assigned as the committee chairman back in August, we have just been unable to find interest. And particularly, I was tasked with finding a committee that was unbiased, and it turns out that that is very hard. And so we are still actively working to find people to join that committee. And in fact, Mr. Tinsley, I would like to ask you, why have you not expressed interest?
That is false. I remember a Senate meeting where you have asked senators if anyone would like to join your committee, raise your hand. I was one of those senators. Why have you not reached out?
I have. I sent out an email to everybody who raised their hand at that meeting, and I only received one response.
Well, that is false. I have not received that email. Next question.
A follow-up question with what you have just said. Being a leader, the responsibilities fall upon you. What personally have you done for it? Because the task is not for the people being part of the committee. The biggest part of the work has to be done by you. What have you personally done for it?
Absolutely. So again, I've been outreaching to SGA internally, as well as I've been combing through, which is a very lengthy process, by the way, of all of the research that we had from last year. We have roughly 200 pages of research, and so I've had to actively comb through that. And so I am ready to put the ball on the ground just as soon as I can find some people to help.
Okay, I have a question for Spencer DeHart.
Mhm.
You said in the beginning of your introduction that you were part of the University Safety Committee.
Absolutely.
I'm just curious, what have you done to make this university safer?
Absolutely. So, as chairman of the University-wide Safety Committee, I have been in the driver's seat to address so many of the top safety concerns on campus. And just to name one, I have been actively working between SGA and GSUPD to advocate for more police presence on campus. And in fact, it's one of the key points of my platform is to advocate for more police presence on campus. And one of the results for that was we were able to add a patrol car to the blue and green lots.
My name is Justin. I just want to know, this is a question for both candidates, how many genders are there? Is there two or infinitely many?
Infinitely many. It's however you identify.
Absolutely.
We have our first question from the live stream. Candidate Tinsley, you claim your points are for commitments that you have around campus. However, if you knew about these commitments, why did you not inform either the speaker or to prevent these points?
Like I stated in my earlier statement, that these excuses, though valid, are not quote-unquote unexcusable by our bylaws as they stand currently. So going into our next administration, we are trying to make a referendum to fix this flaw in our bylaws so that students on campus can be excused by prior notions that they have.
We're going to move on to the next question from the live stream. This is for each of you. We'll start with DeHart. Are you all aware of the initiatives Hamza has worked on during this administration? Have either of you assisted him in accompanying them and accomplishing them, if he has accomplished any?
Should I go first?
So Hamza has reached out to the Senate on a few occasions on certain referendums that he has personally wanted to try to accomplish. One personally that he has tried through me has been to extend housing for other type of Greek communities on campus. We haven't been able to make too many strides, just the two of us, but working together with the Pan-Hellenic and the non-Pan-Hellenic communities, we're hoping that that can change in the next administration.
So Hamza and I have what you would call a special connection, I guess. We've worked on quite a few things. He was absolutely instrumental in that compromise I've spoken about quite a few times to negotiate that compromise between the Atlanta campus and the perimeter campuses. Aside from that, Hamza has always been the person I've turned to anytime I have something brought to me or anytime I have something that I want to bring forward. He's always been the person to go to, and I'm proud to say that he has always been there for me, anything that he can possibly do.
All right, last question for the night. Senator Tinsley, if the Gilley Committee hasn't found interest in pursuing the problem, do you feel that Spencer has failed in his role as chairman of the committee?
I do not feel that Spencer has failed in his role at all. Like I stated before, Senator has definitely proven himself as a senator among others that lack his initiative and lack his drive in the Student Government Association. If anything, it just shows us that there has to be exponentially more effort toward the Gilley project if we want to make strides, tangible strides on the Georgia State's campus.
All right, that concludes our debate for EVP. The debate for the president will start in 15 minutes at 7:15, so if you'd like to grab a snack, go do that now, but be back in time. Thank you.
We will now begin the presidential debate. The candidate that students pick as their next president in the following weeks will become the face of the Georgia State student body. They will represent us on and off campus, across all campuses, and in front of university administration. Students will be choosing the person that represents what they want to see in the 2020-2021 school year and who they will believe will faithfully execute those duties. The student body will be choosing from the following candidates to be their leader and president. Carlos Porter. Nahom Tay. Kaylin Thomas. And Nigel Walton. As an opening statement, candidates, you'll each have 1 minute to tell the audience and your potential constituents why they should vote for you. Speaker Porter, you have the floor.
The SGA needs a change for the better, a change that says students first, a change that says that we will stop fighting among ourselves, stop filling the meetings with nothing but filibuster and bigotry. One that says we are united as one, united for the students, of the students, and by the students, as is our Constitution and as we follow our bylaws. We need to be one. If we're not one, any of the ideas, proposed ideas that any of the candidates on this stage will never get done if we can't be together as one to accomplish it. We need unification. And once we're unified, we will be able to increase security. We will be able to hold each other accountable, not because we're holding anything against each other, but because we're holding each other to a standard that says student first, and a student first mindset. And I am a candidate who has consistently put the students first, both in my Newton Senate, as well as how I wish to bring to the university-wide. That is why I went from having no senators to having a full board missing just one senator, because we put the students first, and the students responded. And that's the type of mindset the university-wide Senate needs.
Thank you, Speaker Porter. Mr. Tay, you have the floor.
Hello, my name is Nahom Tay. I'm an Awashaw American student here at GSU. I work and commute at this university. I'm the previous president of the Alpha Tau Omega Fraternity, and I'm running as your next SGA president, and I want to start a dialogue. When elected, I will create initiatives that help commuters get streamlined information that create an efficient process in getting here on campus, whether it be for parking decks or road closures. I will create more information and empower student organizations so they have more information for possible grants or programs and activities they can hold, because the student organizations here on campus are our backbone. I will help create an initiative to create murals that represent the diversity, the different schools and students here on campus, so we can create more of a culture. And I will help the Career Services Center get more information so students are more aware of the amenities they give.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. Speaker Thomas, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Caleb Thomas. I currently serve as the Speaker of the Atlanta Senate, and I have watched as administration after administration of SGA fail to put students first. During my administration, I will change just that. Whether you are a student leader, a student athlete, or a student artist, I will put you first. And I'm honored to have the opportunity tonight to earn your vote, and that is exactly what I will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker Thomas. Senator Walton, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Let me just say I'm honeymoon happy and peacock proud to be here with you all today. Let me just tell y'all something about me. My name is Nigel Walton. I'm the product of a single-parent household, one who's sitting out there in one of the poorest cities in Georgia. And one of the things you got to understand about this is me, that I believe that this university can change. The problem with our university has been this, that we have been stuck with leaders who call themselves leaders but are not really leaders. They are resume builders, and I intend to tell you today why I'm the best candidate for president of Student Government Association. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Walton. I'd like to ask the candidates to please speak louder into the mics and also to make sure they're turned on. Thank you, candidates. We will now pose one question to each candidate individually. You'll each have 1 minute to answer your question. Candidates, throughout the debate, you may request a 30-second rebuttal to another candidate's statement by raising your hand. The moderator will call on you.
Our first question takes us to Speaker Porter. One of your priorities is to increase safety, in which you mentioned the lack of cameras in on-campus buildings. How do you plan on specifically addressing safety on campus?
One thing would be working alongside the police officers who know every campus. Because one thing that on Newton campus, I can say for specifically, the second floor on both campuses have no cameras whatsoever. Nothing, and at night in the parking lots, there's no lights whatsoever. So one thing, I know the cops who work there, and I know the officer who helps regulate that stuff. One thing I would do is just go to him and talk to him about what we need and why we need it. Because the safety of our students is paramount. And if we have a security that is putting students first as well, we'll be able to help with that.
How will you fund those cameras?
How I fund them? Look at the money we have and just see where the allocation is, because it's all about money, fiscally speaking. I'm an accountant major, so I know a thing or two about money. So it's just a matter of finding out where the money is and where it comes from, and we see what pays for it. Because we've been told before by Atlanta before that cameras are coming, but they never came. So.
Thank you, Speaker Porter.
Our next question is for Mr. Tyre. Last year, only one of the 5 candidates for president was an SGA while running for the position. This year, of our 4 candidates, you're the only one without a current position in SGA. How do you plan on implementing your policies through the proper channels without any experience?
So I'm fully aware of how complex an organization can be. I've attended multiple SGA meetings. I think when first entering an organization and getting familiar with the layout of the organization, I do have 2 years of experience in the executive council of a student organization here on campus. And I will say I have the ability, and especially being from the Andrew Young School and understanding policy and working with layers of government and developing those plans together with individuals.
Have you made any connections with current SGA members?
Yes, in fact, one of my brothers is the executive vice president of the Atlanta campus, Hamza Rahman.
Thank you, Mr. Ted.
Our next question is for Speaker Thomas. During the February 27th Atlanta Senate meeting, you came in late because you were at a campaign meeting for this presidential race, according to a statement to the Signal at that meeting. How can you ensure students that you will fulfill your duties as president when you currently were absent from your duties as speaker in pursuit of the presidency?
Thank you for the question. I would like everyone in the audience to know that that is the only Atlanta Senate meeting that I have ever been late to, and I do not plan on it happening again.
Mr. Thomas, do you still think it was appropriate behavior to show up to a meeting late?
Thank you.
Moderator, I request a rebuttal.
You can rebut after Speaker Thomas finishes his statement.
Okay.
No, I don't think it's ever right to be late for a meeting. However, I did have a prior engagement, but I understand that a campaign meeting may not be an excusable absence. That's why I told EVP Rahman that he could go ahead and give me the points for being late to that meeting, and I understood why he should do that. I also believe that it's okay for someone to miss a meeting every now and again, and the only reason why I came back was because the Senate needed me at that time. If I were not to come back at that meeting, I would have not been preventing the conflict of interest that was taking place there. By me coming back to that meeting, actually, my Speaker Pro Tempore, Terrifi, had introduced legislation to impeach one of the EVP candidates that were here tonight. And if I were not to have stepped back in that role that evening, then Speaker Pro Tempore 5 would have had to run the meeting in my absence. So I actually came back, even though I was scheduled to be out for much longer. I was scheduled to miss the meeting in order to prevent a conflict of interest from taking place.
Thank you, Speaker Thomas.
I find it interesting that your campaign runs on student first. When you couldn't even come to the meeting so you could do your own campaign first. Which came first in that priority?
Speaker Porter, I think you know me well, that I have not once missed a single SGA Atlanta Senate meeting or university-wide Senate meeting. Actually, our university-wide Senate meetings, as Speaker of the Senate, I don't have to attend, but I've attended all of them since this year started. And I actually went to Alpharetta last fall so that I could understand the perimeter campus issues when I didn't have to go, right? So I understand that you're worried about me putting students first.
Thank you, Speaker Thomas.
But I would like to know
Your time
how
is up.
you plan on putting students first.
Yes, you may.
Well, for one, I've been to every perimeter campus, so there's that. Second thing, you just made a statement. It's okay if you miss a few meetings, not if you put the students first. So all of a sudden you're changing from put the students first, and if it's students first, you should come to every meeting. But now you're saying that you can miss a meeting and it's okay?
Speaker Porter, I said it's okay that you can be late to a meeting, not miss the meeting entirely. However, I did understand that missing that meeting resulted in me getting points, and I was okay with that. However, when it comes to putting students first, I do believe that even though we are SGA officers, we are still students first. And there are sometimes things that come before us in our lives, whether that be school or work or just life in general, that we cannot
Thank you, Speaker
account for.
Thomas. We need to move on to the next question.
Our next question is for Senator Walton. In your initiatives, you want to collaborate with the Student Alumni Association, the Alumni Connection Council, and the GSU Foundation to, quote, create a one-of-a-kind student life experience, end quote. What is a one-of-a-kind student life experience, and what role does the GSU Foundation play in this?
Well, here it is. Well, here it is. First and foremost, when you look at homecoming, there are two types of people missing. First of all, there are perimeter students missing. Second of all, there are alumni students. So the GSU Foundation, not only do they fund a lot of things on campus, not only this campus, but on perimeter campuses, they also have a very big alumni base. So it is in my plans that what I want to do is that we need to get everybody in the same room and specifically get us in the room to tell the GSU Foundation, Alumni Connection Council, and the Student Alumni Association that if we really want not only this university now to succeed, but the university past and present, then we have to have everybody in the room about student life.
Well, the GSU Foundation only intakes donations for Georgia State. So what role could they play in this one-of-a-kind student life experience?
But also the GSU Foundation also hosts alumni events, such as they hosted alumni events every homecoming before the game.
Thank you, Senator Walton.
Our next question is for Speaker Thomas. As of this afternoon, you currently have an election complaint filed by Senator Walton against you for not recusing yourself at last week's Atlanta Senate meeting and adding your campaign manager, Ear Leafnot, to the speakers list. How would you like to address that complaint?
Thank you for the question. Again, there was not a conflict of interest there. And the reason I did not recuse myself was because as Speaker of the Senate, my job is just to facilitate discussion. I didn't add anything to that discussion. And actually, when it came time to vote, I recused myself. And the other senators that were running in the room followed my lead after I left. So no, there was not a conflict of interest there taking place. And actually, I understand that my campaign manager was there to speak, but I didn't know that he was going to speak at the time. And if any student there at that Senate meeting wanted to speak, I would have given them that same opportunity. Again, I did not know what my campaign manager was going up there to speak about, and I actually think it's kind of ridiculous that you're talking about my campaign manager when you have not brought that question up to anybody else on this stage. I'm the one that's running, and I feel like those questions should be directed towards me.
Mr. Tai, you may respond.
I would like to state, I wasn't in fact at that meeting, but recalling from the Signal article, it did state that you did not claim your campaign manager at the time. So you're saying the statement of you were not aware of his actions and you were creating a dissociation between you and him at that event, but now you are claiming him.
No, I was always claiming him. However, during a Senate meeting, I don't think it's proper. I don't think it was okay for me to disclose that information. The information we were discussing at that Senate meeting was actually the impeachment of Takai Tinsley, which implicated Senator Walton that's standing here next to me. So I also think it's kind of interesting that you've left out that fact as well. And I do believe that any student who wants to speak before the Senate has the right to do so. However, campaign meetings should not be brought up at Senate meetings, no. So I didn't feel it was necessary for me to disclose that my campaign manager was in the audience.
Senator Walton, you have the floor.
Thank you. Well, I want to say that you say you left the room when we were voting, but even before that, what you intended to do is that you took over a meeting knowing full well that we were talking about the impeachment of an investigation of the impeachment of Takai Tinsley, but also not only him, but also about me. Second of all, what you intended to do is you know Robert Rules of Order better than anybody in this room. I would like to congratulate you on that. But one of the things that you have you gave each senator 2 minutes to talk about something when really the rule says 10 minutes. And also a third thing that you did was that when we were talking about, when you let your campaign manager talk, the campaign manager who you all of a sudden want to take claim for right now, you said that you did not know, we were not talking about, you didn't know what he was going to say. Well, we were talking about impeaching somebody. So what you mean you don't know what they was about to say?
Senator Walton, to respond to your question, you're right, I do know Robert's Rules of Order pretty well. However, I am not a parliamentarian. I didn't understand that it's exactly 10 minutes for each person to speak. But we had only opened the floor for discussion for 30 minutes. So I was trying to make sure that everybody who wanted their voice heard on the impeachment inquiry could get their voices heard. That's why I gave everybody 2 minutes to speak. And I understand, again, you want to harp on the fact that I am not claiming my campaign manager I was not claiming my campaign manager at that point in time. But I still did not know what he was going to go up there and say word for word. I just know that he wanted to speak as a student, right? And so another thing to that point, when it comes to the impeachment inquiry, I had not received that legislation at all. I had not seen it prior to that Senate meeting. So when I got there, I found out the agenda was actually amended to add that impeachment inquiry there. So I showed up to the Senate meeting because I wanted to still come after my campaign meeting, like you all had said, ended early, and I didn't know what was happening. And so when Speaker Fye told me that he was running the meeting and he was about to lead discussion on a bill that he introduced to impeach another member of the Senate, of course I stepped in because I wanted to prevent a conflict of interest from taking place.
Thank you, Speaker Thomas.
So what I'm hearing is you don't think that it's a conflict of interest to have Speaker Pro Tempore Fye, who isn't run for anything. The only thing he does is election commission, and Speaker Pro Temp. He really would have no conflict of interest, but you thought it right to run the meeting, and obviously the bill implicates me in it, who is your opponent. So that really sounds like a conflict of interest to me.
Senator Walton, it is not a conflict of interest. Actually, if Speaker Fye were to run that meeting, he introduced that bill of impeachment. So if he were to facilitate that discussion, that is the definition of a conflict of interest. Actually, what is a definition of a conflict of interest is the fact that you decided not to recuse yourself during discussion, even though you were brought up in the impeachment inquiry too, and you're also running in this election. So how about we speak on that, Senator Walton?
Well, the bill had my name in it, though, so.
Thank you, candidates.
Yeah, the bill had my name.
We will now move on to the next question.
Our next question is for Senator Walton. You currently have an election complaint filed against you by Speaker Pro Tempore Terrifi for pre-campaigning and collusion regarding a fraternity's endorsement. How would you like to address that complaint?
Well, here it is, and I want to address this once and for all because it's been a topic of conversation for some reason. There was no collusion. There was no pre-campaigning. Everything that I did was by the book, and I will stick by that, plain and simple.
So you don't believe there's any validity at all to that claim?
I don't believe there's any validity at all to the complaint. That's why I fought against it at the meeting.
Thank you, Senator Walton.
Thank you.
Senator Thomas, you may respond.
Senator Walton, what concerns me the most is that my campaign does have 2 election complaints, but they were both filed by you on the exact same night. Now, I don't know to anybody in the audience what that might mean, but to me that seems sort of malicious. And the 2 election complaints that you have against your campaign were filed by 2 independent students, and both are still under investigation. So how do you explain that?
Speaker Porter, you may respond.
This is exactly the fighting that needs to stop. You two are fighting among each other and not putting the students first. For once, you both should have recused yourself because you both were involved in this. Neither of you did. What's wrong with that? So you're more concerned with making a political point than actually putting students first.
Senator Walton, you may respond.
First and foremost, Mr. Porter, why would I recuse myself when the bill literally accused me of breaking a violation code? If that's the case, then Takai Tinsley might as well recuse himself too, but he didn't because the bill was about us. Number two, Kayla, I would say that one of those election complaints was a misunderstanding of the housing rule, so I'll say I was wrong on that one, and that was, I cleared that up with Mr. Boyd.
May I respond?
Speaker Thomas, you may respond.
Speaker Porter, this is not fighting. Senator Walton is actually a good friend of mine. However, we do have our disagreements from time to time. And I will mention that, again, it is my job as Speaker of the Senate to facilitate all discussion in the Senate, right? Again, I did not add any input into that discussion. All I did was simply call on people who raised their hands to speak, right? And I did recuse myself during that meeting because I realized that if I hadn't recused myself before the vote took place, if I were still in that room and there were a tie, I would be forced to vote in case of the tie.
Speaker Porter, you may respond.
Well, considering you almost didn't even make it to the meeting, I don't know what you're arguing for. Second off, it both was handled unprofessionally, I think, by both of you. The fact that both of your elections have complaints on it shows that you cannot even manage your own campaign. How can you manage a university?
Speaker Thomas, you may respond.
Speaker Porter, like I just said, both election complaints were filed by Senator Walton, that's right here next to me, and one, he just admitted to it not being a real election complaint, and the second one isn't a complaint at all. So I'm not understanding why you're questioning my ability to lead when I actually lead one of the biggest senates at this stage.
If it's not even a complaint, why is the election commissioner investigating it?
Audience, can you please calm down? Thank you.
May I respond?
Yes.
Because people are allowed to file any complaint that they want.
I know, but the thing is, the election commissioner is taking it seriously. Why aren't you?
I am taking it seriously.
You just said it's a phony complaint.
I'm taking all election complaints against my campaign seriously. However, these two, the ones that I'm referring to in particular, are not real election complaints.
Fake news?
Not fake news.
We will now move on to the next question. Each candidate will now have 1 minute to answer the following questions. Meetings this semester have started late in excess of 30 minutes. Complications with WebEx have caused communication problems, and senators have come unaware of what the night's legislation will be and unprepared to have an effective discussion. While this would fall under the role of speaker at a campus meeting, at the university-wide meeting, this role falls on the president. What solutions do you have to run an effective university-wide meeting? Mr. Tai, you have the floor.
It's actually a great question. So I work here in Georgia State's tech support, so with WebEx, I can fix all complications with that since I work at it with my job. Complications for meetings, in my student organization, we would brief our members beforehand on the topics we would discuss. I would go over with other committee heads and leaders in the organization on what they will discuss and where they think the conversation will be going. I think by running information like that and everything's streamlined and communicated with the organization, you can do an efficient job, and I feel like I can implement that as well in the student government, and it turned out great for the U-wide Senate.
Thank you, Mr. Tai. Speaker Thomas, you have the floor.
So again, when I traveled to the Alpharetta campus to attend that university-wide Senate meeting, I realized just what the problem with WebEx is, and it's not conducive to a university-wide Senate meeting at all, when we really should all be in the same room talking to one another. So as the next university-wide president, I will make it my task to make sure that every senator is in that room so that we can continue to have productive discussions and we continue to have university representatives come and speak to us.
Mayor Rebuttal?
Speaker Porter, you may respond.
You said it took you getting to Alpharetta to realize these problems. We've been telling, us at Perimeter have been telling you about these problems for so long. Why haven't you done anything until you actually had to go to a meeting there? Well, not had to, but why you went to a meeting there?
Speaker Porter, I am not president. I don't have the power to set the agenda in SGA. I am just the Speaker of the Atlanta Senate. And actually, I find it interesting that you want to talk about what I've done for Perimeter, because I was actually on your campus last fall, and I talked to your EVP, Cassie Turner, and she told me about an elevator on the Newton campus in one of your classroom buildings that was missing a roof panel. And she didn't know who to talk to when it came to that. But I did, because we had just had him at an Atlanta Senate meeting. So I contacted him, and within the week, that roof panel was fixed. So yeah, I do understand that there are always issues on the Perimeter campuses. However, as Speaker of the Senate, my sole responsibility is to make sure that I take care of the Atlanta Senate. And I'm not saying that Perimeter issues don't matter. However, I'm saying that maybe the top leadership in SGA should have paid more attention to Perimeter issues.
Thank you, Speaker Thomas.
Thank you.
Senator Walton, you have the floor.
Well, thank you. Well, first of all, I think we need to find another tech solution. And even though that we use WebEx, WebEx is not the best, and we know this. Second of all, I believe we need to create a streamlined system. The problem with, I think, SGA is that a lot of us don't look at our emails except those who are required of us, like 3 people who are sitting on this, standing on this stage right now. So we need to create a streamlined system in a way that has the ability to shoot out emails in an effective way. And third of all, we just need to change the hearts and minds of the senators that we have. The problem is with this, that SGA, there's not an incentive to be in SGA. That, to be honest with you, we have these long meetings that take a long time. So of course, and with the technical difficulties, of course that we have these complications with senators really not being as active. But if we can just change how we look at SGA and change the system of it, I believe we can change the hearts and minds of our senators.
Thank you, Senator Walton.
I'd just like to add on what Senator Walton just said. We do have a real problem in SGA, and that is with disillusionment in our senators. Students come to SGA, they join us, and when they get here, they really don't understand what SGA does or what SGA is about. And that's not their fault at all. That's really our fault, because we're not doing the job that we're supposed to do when it comes to marketing SGA to students.
Thank you, Speaker Thomas. Speaker Porter, you have the floor.
Well, for one, I agree with what they say, change WebEx. WebEx is a joke. It shouldn't even be used for this. It's not made for this. It wasn't created for big meetings like this. It was more created for more private meetings. But what I would do to change that is to change the mindset. A mindset that says we're not here for our own agenda. We're not here for our own well-being. We're here for the students, and the students first. And we should hold ourselves to a standard that says we will be the best we can do. We will do the best we can do, because that is what the students deserve.
Thank you, Speaker Porter. Candidates, I would like to remind you, in order to continue an orderly debate, to please raise your hand in order to be called on. Thank you.
There have been several bills on the Senate floor that some may argue show division between the Atlanta and Perimeter Senates. How do you plan to unify the campuses within the university-wide Senate? Speaker Porter?
Within the university-wide Senate, make sure that every campus feels they have a voice in the bill and spoken for. Because in the past, before the quorum bill that was passed, Atlanta could have the supermajority and Perimeter could have no say in it whatsoever. So one thing I think is, especially going on with the bill that was passed by Mr. Dehart over there, thank you for that, which I sponsored part of that bill. But make sure that everyone knows they have a voice and they're all accounted for. Because the division comes, and I speak as the only Perimeter candidate up here, that Perimeter is treated like the red-headed stepchild where we're forgotten about. So one thing is that we will hold everyone at the same level, that everyone has the same voice. I think that will help.
Do you have any specific plans to unify the campuses, any specific measures?
I would definitely say within the messaging, use a different messenger that texts instantly to all of them, so they're all on the same page. All the bills get sent out on the same way. Because with the email, like you said, no one checks it. No one checks it as often as they should. So I would do something that's more direct and that brings everyone together on every campus.
Thank you, Speaker Porter. Mr. Tayed?
Yes. So if I was elected as the SGA president, I would have a meeting with each perimeter campus EVP and Speaker of the House, familiarizing myself with those individuals and communicating what issues they want to hear, and starting that dialogue first is how you build that connection. And I first want to recognize that we can't say one GSU unless the perimeter campuses feel like it's one GSU. It's a statement that we have to show in our actions and work with the perimeter campuses.
Thank you, Mr. Tayed. Speaker Thomas.
Thank you. I do understand that some perimeter campuses feel like there is unfair representation in SGA, and they're right. And if you don't know how our university-wide Senate is structured, there is 46 seats, 31 of which are allocated to the Atlanta campus, and that's all of our senators. The other 15 are divvied up among the perimeter campuses based off the previous fall's enrollment. And so my solution to fix this problem is actually to do away with the university-wide Senate structure entirely. I want to create a university-wide Senate and a House of Representatives, because our current university-wide Senate only functions as a House of Representatives and doesn't give perimeter an equal voice in a university-wide matters.
Speaker Porter, would you like to respond?
Yes, ma'am. Considering we're all Atlanta perimeter as a whole, university-wide as a whole Senate, has a hard time filling seats. How do you think creating a bicameral legislation which has more seats would allow more students to be involved, if they're not even involved already?
Speaker Thomas?
Speaker Porter, that would be my job as president, to make sure I do a better job of marketing SGA to students so that more students actually want to get involved in student government and actually want to help create change on their campuses.
Senator Walton?
Well, first and foremost, I think just as president, internally, you have to go to every campus, and I'm working on that right now. I've gone to 3 other perimeter campuses. I intend to go to Alpharetta and Newton next week. So you have to go to every campus, but not only every campus, you got to speak to leaders. Because I think the people who know about each campus are these leaders in these issues. But also, I remember I was on Clarkston campus and I had a great conversation with someone about one thing they wanted changed. And something that I thought about was how do we really connect these two entities called the Atlanta campus and perimeter? I think one of those things is that we need to try to work on some type of transportation system, because a lot of those students, they want to go to basketball games, they want to go to football games, but they don't have the necessary ride to do that, or for the fact of the matter that we have a different GPA system in Atlanta than perimeter campus. Well, I, especially as an academic affairs chair, am working on trying to change that so that we can be more unified.
Do you believe that there are bills on the Senate floor that show division between the Atlanta and perimeter Senates?
I do.
Would you like to give any examples?
Well, specifically location rotation. I think that a lot of us, me included, that we had a problem with that bill when we really were just looking at the facts of the matter. I did not think that just because we moved campuses does not mean that we were going to change the hearts and minds of ourselves internally. I did not think that was the best course of action.
Thank you, Senator Walton.
Thank you.
SGA presidents are only required to hold 2 U-wide meetings per semester. Outgoing President Mejia held 4 in the fall, but reduced that to the minimum of 2 this spring, causing many senators to panic at the most recent meeting, some rushing to pass legislation because they wouldn't have another chance to pass bills until the second meeting at the end of the semester. How many meetings would you be required to have this spring semester if you were in Mejia's shoes? Speaker Thomas, you have the floor.
I'm a man that likes to stick by my word. So if I'm going to have 4 university-wide Senate meetings in the fall, there will also be 4 university-wide Senate meetings in the spring.
Thank you, Speaker Thomas. Senator Walton, you have the floor.
I would also have 4 in the fall and the spring. I think it just one every month, because I believe that it just helps us have a continuing thing with our universities, especially within SGA.
Thank you, Senator Walton. Speaker Porter, you have the floor.
Same thing, I'll just say 4 in the fall, 4 in the spring.
Thank you, Speaker Porter. Mr. Tay, you have the floor.
4 in the fall and 4 in the spring, and I would stick to my word.
Thank you, Mr. Tay.
Only one of you will be able to hold the title of president. So if you lose, do you have plans to continue to be engaged with SGA afterward? Senator Walton, you have the floor.
Of course. Actually, during my freshman year, when I applied to be a freshman liaison, I didn't get the job whatsoever. I couldn't even get past the interview. But I mean, that didn't stop me. My freshman year, fall 2018, I still worked upon the homelessness committee, helped President Patterson out. So just because I didn't lose, just because you lose doesn't mean that you need to be involved. And I'm a person that says you don't need a title for leadership. I believe that a leader is just who you are.
Thank you, Senator Walton. Speaker Porter, you have the floor.
Could you repeat the question again?
If you lose, do you have plans to continue to be engaged with SGA afterwards?
I do. Right now I'm on Newton, but by the fall of this year, I'll be transferring down to Atlanta. So one thing I want to do is first see if there's any vacancies that I could apply for, because I've come to really love the student government here, and I want to see it best, and I want to be able to serve it best. And if I am able to, I want to be in a position where I can serve the students. So I will continue to be involved, and I do have plans to be involved if I don't win this.
Thank you, Speaker Porter. Mr. Taye, you have the floor.
My response would be, of course. I've been a member of this community, and I love this community, and I've been a Panther since 2017, and I plan to be a Panther and scream that I'm a Panther until the day I die.
Thank you, Mr. Taye. Speaker Thomas, you have the floor.
Thank you for the question. I've been in SGA now for 2 years. My first year, I was a senator for the College of Arts and Sciences. I then became head senator for the College of Arts and Sciences, and I led our first safety ad hoc committee chair. So I do see myself being in SGA again next year. This is the only organization that I've ever been actively involved in on campus. And a lot of people may see that as a weakness, but I only see that as a strength, because it really shows that I'm devoted to the work that I do, and the amount of hours that I spend in the office, can really speak to that.
Thank you, Speaker Thomas.
We will now begin the speed round. Each candidate will be given the chance to answer the following questions in 1 word or as few words as possible. Answer, but please do not explain your answer. Answers will be given from left to right across the stage, beginning with Speaker Porter for each and every question.
How many SGA meetings have you attended in their entirety this semester?
5.
1.
All but 1.
All of them.
What has been your biggest accomplishment within SGA or for the student body this far?
Filling my Senate.
Raising money for the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta.
One-on-ones with my senators.
My semester's finals week event.
What one quality is the most important for the SGA president to have?
Humility.
Being endearing.
Sacrifice.
Servant leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. This now concludes the moderated questions. We now open the floor to the audience. Audience members, if you would like to ask a question, again, please approach the microphone at the front. We will take 3 questions from our live audience and 3 from our audience at home, time permitting. Candidates, you have 30 seconds to respond.
We're going to start with our live stream questions, so if you would like to ask a question, please get in line. 2 candidates besides Thomas. You guys argue that Thomas should not have presided over the meeting in question. Who should have presided over the meeting? We'll start with Porter.
I would say Terry should have continued.
I agree with Terry continuing, and our argument was more so on the way Speaker Thomas conducted himself within the meeting.
I would say Terrifi.
This question is for Speaker Thomas. I heard that free menstrual products were a part of your campaign. How do you go about implementing them across all campuses?
So right now in student government, we have what's called the Flower Initiative. Actually, our Student Services Committee Chair, John Lee, who was just seated, is over that, excuse me. And we have a promise to students. We promised them that we would provide them free menstrual products. And I think it's kind of sad that there's no other presidential candidate on this stage tonight that is willing to continue and follow through with our promise of providing those products to students. And so what those products will do is they'll go to all the clinics on each of the perimeter campuses. Right now we have a pilot program being scheduled, and we hope to update you all more on that soon.
Speaker Porter, after starting and continuing fights on the debate stage that you said shouldn't be happening, why do you believe that you can lead the University Senate and resolve conflict as they occur?
I'm not fighting. I'm addressing them, holding accountable for what they've done, for their history. Both Thomas and Nigel have said they've watched administrations come and go and fail to put the students first, but they were part of that same administration. So I don't see how they can put the students first when they weren't even in a position to do so. And I'm just saying, I'm passionate about what I believe, and what I believe is that we need change, and I believe I have the mindset change.
This question is for Walton. You're known for being very anti-perimeter at the U-wide meetings. How are you going to be the president for everyone when other campuses don't trust you?
Well, when we say anti-perimeter, I think that if you're going to get a bill or you get anything, you got to make sure that with me that you're on your P's and Q's. And one of my things was that in each bill that they had, I just picked every single bill apart. And I believe that I am for every student on this campus, because again, I believe that at the end of your 4 to 5 years here, that you need to say that I'm a better person because I went to Georgia State.
This question is for Mr. Ty. How do you plan to relate to and communicate to perimeter students when you haven't had experience with that student population during your time at State?
We're all individuals that are at universities to better ourselves. I think acknowledging that first and foremost. We all come from different backgrounds, but I think having that conversation and acknowledging one another is the start of it.
We'll now start the questions from our live audience.
Hi everyone, my name is Jasmine Mejia. I am the current SGA University-wide president, and I am very excited to see all 4 of you gentlemen on here on the stage. I just had a question regarding some of the comments that you have made about WebEx. So having 4 meetings in the fall and 4 meetings in the spring is a very difficult task to make. You did all acknowledge that WebEx is not efficient and that it's extremely hard to use. So how will you have effective U-wides on all the campuses, considering we do have that new bill that mandates the U-wides to be located on a different campus each U-wide? How will you make sure that they're effective and stuff is getting done when not every center is going to be able to attend and their voice may be left unheard via WebEx? Anyone can answer.
So I'll go first. I actually didn't criticize WebEx. I am familiar with the program, and I do know officials here at Georgia State University that are familiar with it as well. So I would reach out to certain tech support members here on Georgia State's campus on how to properly conduct it and making sure each perimeter campus and the Atlanta campus it efficiently conducts the WebEx process.
I think we sort of shot ourselves in the foot during this administration when we passed legislation that allowed Atlanta senators to WebEx in. So really, Atlanta senators are no longer required to show up to where the meeting is being held at. I do think that next administration, maybe something they should look at is repealing that legislation, just so that it's a priority for students to actually be on the perimeter campuses or any other campus that a university-wide Senate meeting is being held on.
First and foremost, I think that how we do meetings is wrong. I think that when we come to SGA meetings that we have the tendency to deal with these little issues when, just to be honest, we should be able to come to meeting and telling each other, whether you're in the Atlanta campus or perimeter campus, hey, this is what I've been doing, how can you help? So first and foremost, if there are any problems, I think that needs to be problems legislation-wise or what we're doing, that needs to be handled before, but also just working with the university, as Ty said, work with the university to either find a better way with WebEx or work out those issues that we have in WebEx.
I think this new bill that makes us rotate actually fixes it, but I definitely would say get rid of WebEx and maybe get rid of the bill, because the best way to do any type of business, whether you're in the politics, whether you're in the business world, is to be there, be present at it. So I think they should be required to be there, honestly.
Okay, great. I have another follow-up question. Thank you. So another reasoning is that our UIs do tend to last a very long time. So how are you going to make sure that the senators come with the knowledge, the bills, everything they need to know, so our meetings are more efficient and quicker, and we're not just sitting there for 3 hours trying to discuss what's at hand?
Again, what I said earlier is that the problem is that our senators, they don't have an incentive to being in SGA. So one of the things that I really want to change SGA into is to a leadership development program, that when you come into this organization, that you will not be the same when you come out, because we've built you as a leader. And part of that is a responsibility of your job. And one of those responsibilities is looking at emails, which, just to be honest, it just takes a real conversation that needs to be had with each and every senator, telling them that if you really want to serve the students and you really want to be a leader, you have to go through the proper communication, which we use emails.
I'd say talk to the EVPs, make sure that each EVP is doing all they can to make sure their senators are up to date, held accountable, and doing what they need to do before the meeting begins. So it goes from president, EVP to senator.
Okay. I agree with Carlos. Communicating with certain leaders instead of communicating to a large group is a lot more efficient. And by communicating that, they can hold accountable other senators of what is needed of them. By showing them that information of what is expected of them, like Senator Walton has stated, you prepare them and they do end up different when they come out of the SGA.
Right. I do think it's our job to prepare our senators for our Senate meetings. That's why we send out things in advance and early. We also have Slack, and all of our senators are on that as well. So we should send it out in more than just one way, because senators do tend to miss emails. I know sometimes we all may miss an email every now and again. So just making sure that we are reinforcing what it is that's going to be happening at our Senate meetings, making sure that we're encouraging our senators to continue to check their emails, continue to actively participate in SGA, and making sure that we follow through with that.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Takai Tinsley, the current head senator for the College of Arts and Sciences and one of the EVP contestants for the Atlanta campus. I have a question for Speaker Porter. So you say you put students first, Mr. Speaker, but at the beginning of the school year, you were a part of a perimeter coalition to have the perimeter campus leave SGA entirely, making the Student Government Association divided rather than united. This discontent caused major problems for our SGA and led to a lot of constituent-related agendas not getting done. So how is this putting students first?
I wasn't part of the coalition. In fact, I was kicked out of the group chat that I was part of because I was not for it. I was actually kicked out of it, so I wasn't any part of that.
No follow-up question.
My name is Malik. So I'm a senior here, and so first of all, props to everybody. It's really good to see you all here. I'm interested in getting more involved in SGA. I think it's clearly indicative of just how powerful Colleen Thomas's stance is and how big his platform is, based off of, like, I've heard over a dozen rebuttals and complaints and attacks on him, but not really anybody else. So I have a question for Kaylin Thomas, my apologies, for Kaylin Thomas. At my position right now, I work with managing budgets for bringing a lot of jobs for one of the biggest airlines in the world to university campuses, and they're really attracted to UGA and Georgia Tech. How would you, at Georgia State, plan on managing, say, a six-figure budget for bringing maybe pipeline programs or bringing more awareness to the positions that are available at these schools and getting them to take Georgia State more seriously?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So what kind of role do you have in Delta currently? Is that where you said you work at?
Well, yeah, it is the biggest airline, yeah. So Delta Airlines, that is it.
Would you be interested in setting up maybe a future partnership? Maybe you come to SGA and maybe lead a discussion, a leadership development or a workshop of sorts, so that students could come and you could teach them about what it would be like to be in that role that you are currently in, and then maybe we can set up some internship opportunities through that program.
For sure, like we have internship opportunities already, but they're more specifically asking for sort of finding candidates that are already sort of prepared for those positions. And usually the undergrads are looked over and there's not a lot of presence here, even though we do have a community success center already. Do you have any ideas around sort of bringing more awareness to even potentially greater, more corporate partnerships for bringing more jobs? That's my interest, bringing more jobs to Georgia State campus.
Yeah, so that's actually one of my platform goals, because I believe that students should spend more time on campus. And the reason why they don't is because they have to struggle between school and work and just life in general, right? That's why I believe that student leaders should deserve a stipend, right? So that students spend more time on campus planning events and activities for all of us, and that way they'll spend less time at work. And another way that we should increase on-campus jobs, and one way that I would like to, as the next university-wide president, is start a business council. I believe in what Andrew Young believes in when he talks about public-private capitalism. And that means that we have public issues and there is private money out there to solve them, and we should be reaching out to the business leaders in our community and setting up these opportunities for our students to create jobs right here on our campuses.
Okay. I also have a question for this same question for Walton. You did say about servant leadership, development program. How do you envision that you would bring more corporate partnerships to bring more jobs to Georgia State for employers to take us more seriously than Georgia Tech?
So one of the great things I had the opportunity to do is in Sandy Springs, I had the opportunity to go to the NCR headquarters. And in that conversation with a group of people I was a part of, is that we really were just talking about how we can build more internships in Georgia State, and they even said, hey, yeah, Nigel, we're gonna come to Georgia. We're gonna come to Georgia State, and actually they did. They actually have a, if you're looking for an internship, NCR has internships in human resources, tech, and the like. But it also takes, again, getting to know the alumni, because as you said, you're a graduating senior, correct? So we have to actually continue that relationship that you have with the university after you graduate.
Thank you.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Doing well.
Good.
My name is Ashton Cunningham, and I'm a reporter for The Signal. But my question is more towards transportation. Senator Walton, you mentioned transportation. As someone who just transitioned downtown from Dunwoody, parking is really hard, and I found that it's just easier to take MARTA. Is there any way we could team up with MARTA and issue Breeze cards as part of the tuition plan, or just help streamline the transportation process in any way?
Well, yes, so I realize that transportation has been like a big issue, especially how we've moved Blue Lot around. One of the things that I would work with the university is, okay, first of all, how do we get people to realize the certain passes that they need? Because I get that can be a little confusing sometimes, especially because I drive and I have a car, so it's hard for me. I didn't know where to get a pass or anything. Secondly, your idea with MARTA, I will actually look into that, because just to be honest, I've never heard of that before, so I will look into that.
This is for everybody else. If you guys had any thing you guys want to add, go ahead.
Yeah, so working with commuters is actually a large part of my platform. I am a commuter myself. Commuting does suck, I'm going to be honest, when there's traffic around and you have issues with public transportation. But if you streamline the information, like you said, by giving an SMS text that you can get that tells you when decks are filled up, and you know when roads are closed, it can make your life a lot easier. And you can also help transfer students or students coming in by giving them packages of what passes they need and who they need to reach out for all budget passes for MARTA as well.
Ashton, that was your name?
Yes, sir.
So T is actually transportation as part of my platform. I think it's very important that we make sure that we are taking care of our commuter students here on the Atlanta campus. One of the ideas that I want to look at when I become the next Georgia State University student body president is actually subsidizing our MARTA card program in the same way that the university gives us money on our Panther cards to print each year. I think that they can also give us money to put on our MARTA cards for those students who might need that transportation, who that might be their only way of getting to campus every day. And another thing that we can do for commuter students is get some more microwaves, right? The ones that we have outside are not only dirty, but they get taken away at a certain time of the hour, right? So I think we need to do more to protect our commuter students, and I want to thank you for bringing that question up.
Go ahead, Mr. Porter, I'm sorry.
I would definitely say work more with MARTA because as another commuter student, I take MARTA a lot. And also, I think MARTA would be a cheaper option and students should be incorporated in the fees, considering two-way MARTA is $5 each time. So I think it would be a lot cheaper and if we work with MARTA on it.
May I also ask?
And we have tried a bus before, but no one used it, so it was canceled. So that was something that was tried in the past.
Right. And I'd just like to add, I think it's time that Georgia State stops selling out on our students. We just lost half of Blue Lot because we sold it to an independent contractor. And that's the only free parking that students have here on campus, between Blue Lot and Green Lot, right? So I think it's time that Georgia State University stop putting profit over people. And I think it's time that we start putting student interests first.
Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is John Lee and I'm currently serving as Student Services Committee Chair. I'm also a transition student as well. I attended the Clarkston campus for 2 years before attending the Atlanta campus that I'm currently at now. My question is for Speaker Porter. So I know during the debate you're very willing to question other people's abilities to lead. So I just want to ask, since you're willing to do that, what tangible things have you done for the university?
When I became speaker at the beginning of the 90s administration, before that, there was only me and Cassie Turner, who was the other senator. She became EVP and I became speaker. We had nobody in the Senate. We had an empty Senate. From my work for putting students first and for GSU and SGA as a whole, we have been able to fill up our entire board with senators, missing just one person, and we still have someone getting hired and another one, and we have multiple applications. So it's just showing that when you put students first, students will reciprocate and put them and bring back into you.
Okay, and I have one more question for Speaker Porter again. So, given that this is a university-wide position, this concerns students from all campuses, including Atlanta. So I just want to know, what steps have you taken to get to know students on all campuses, including Atlanta campus students?
I've been traveling there. At least, one thing I try to do is travel each campus at least once a month. It's something I want to continue to do as president. I want to be able to be there, if I'm elected president, I want to be there and show them that every campus, no matter where you are at every campus, you can come to me and talk to me directly. So I would announce that I'm coming there and say, this is where I'm going to be, this is the room I'm going to be in, and this is the type of forum we will have.
Thank you everyone in the audience for coming out tonight, and thank you for our viewers at home for tuning in. We wish the best of luck to our candidates as we look forward to seeing you at the polls online through pin.gsu.edu from March 10th through 12th all day long. Stay up to date on any election code violations, ballot changes, and election day results at georgiastatesignal.com/SGA-debate, or you can go to Twitter and look at hashtag #GSUSGA2020. I would like to remind candidates, campaign members, and current SGA members and media personnel that you are welcome to the spin room after this event. This concludes the debate for the 91st SGA administration. Good night and good luck.